clock on the courtroom wall ticked slower than a dying heart. Every head turned toward the prosecution table where my father, Walter Vance, founder of Aegis Global, sat rigid and powerful. He looked untouchable, but he hadn't accounted for the witness me. My name is Anya Vance. 3 months ago, my family buried me alive to silence a whistleblower. They held a silk-draped funeral and signed the papers transferring my shares to my brother Caleb. They mourned the daughter they thought they had successfully erased. When I pushed open the oak doors, the low murmur of anticipation vanished. Time didn't just stop, it fractured. My father's hand froze mid-twitch. My mother, Eliza, covered her mouth in horror. It was Caleb, my executioner, who shattered the silence. "Anya," he screamed, knocking his chair over. "She's dead." I took 3 measured steps, my heels clicking like a gavel. I was walking into my resurrection. I placed a sleek USB drive on the judge's bench. My hand was steady. The look in Walter's eyes wasn't just fear. It was the dawning realization that the body they buried didn't stay down. Today a ghost walked in, and that ghost had come to collect. 4 months ago, I was still the idealistic analyst who believed numbers never lied, specializing in quantifying environmental risk for Aegis Global. I believed in building sustainable futures until I learned the foundation of our empire was built on quicksand and deceit. The red flags appeared in the data stream for the flagship Ocean View Eco Resort project. The compliance reports signed off by my brother Caleb were pristine, yet the raw telemetry data showed significant variance. I ran the analysis 3 times, confirming the horror. The reported soil remediation figures were falsified and legally protected. Wetlands had been aggressively drained and filled to cut costs, violating every standard we publicly championed. I confronted Caleb, the director of sustainable development, in his glass-walled office. He was utterly unfazed by the multi-million-dollar fraud. He didn't deny it. Instead, he flashed that dismissive, smug smile. "It's called greenwashing, darling. We make the world think we care, they give us the money, and we build what we need." When I took the evidence directly to Walter, the reaction was colder. He sat behind his enormous desk. "Anya," he sighed, "you are confusing ethics with business. Sometimes a few lines on a spreadsheet need adjusting. Aegis needs these bonds. You want to bring down a $20 billion company over a few acres of swamp?" His words were a heavy final curtain. I realized they weren't just cutting corners. They were criminals. I retreated, knowing silence wasn't an option. Over 3 tense nights, I meticulously compiled every piece of damning data wire transfers to Shell Company's original compliance photos and the telemetry proving the destruction. I created a secure encrypted backup on a portable drive, then sealed it. I sent a single anonymized ethics violation report to Aegis's internal audit board. Walter, a master manipulator, tracked the subtle system access patterns. Only I had the clearance and recklessness to challenge him. That night, Walter told Caleb, "She's not just a threat, she's a liability. Find a way to make the liability disappear. Permanently." The corporate dispute had become a matter of survival. 3 months ago, the internal inquiry I had triggered had stalled. Walter's machine was too powerful, his contacts too deep. Yet he still hadn't found the encrypted drive or fully pinpointed the source of the leak, meaning I was still a loose end. The silence from the office was deafening, the kind that precedes a storm. It was a Tuesday night, the sky over Seattle bruised and heavy with rain. Caleb called from his secure line, his voice frantic, almost believable. "Anya, thank God. Someone's remotely wiping the environmental servers for the Ocean View site. It looks like a retaliatory hack. Dad is losing it. He said only you know the old access protocols. Please, Anya, hurry. Bring your old access drive to the old reclamation lot off Highway 99. He knew exactly which string to pull. I cared about the raw data because it was the only truthful record left. Despite the chilling voice of doubt, I grabbed my coat and the drive. I drove out of the city, the skyscrapers fading into the relentless rain. The road twisted through empty industrial parks until I reached the vast muddy lot, the same area I had flagged as high risk. The site was eerily dark. No floodlights, no security. "Caleb," I called out, my voice swallowed by the hollow space. My flashlight beam cut through the mist, landing on nothing. Then I heard it, the subtle, sickening squelch of boots sinking into the wet earth behind me. I spun around, heart hammering a desperate rhythm. A shadow moved. Before I could even raise my hands, something heavy. A crowbar wrapped in a thick rag struck the back of my head. Pain exploded, blinding, all-consuming. The world dissolved into black. Consciousness returned as a suffocating weight. My mouth was taped shut, wrists and ankles bound tight. I was lying on my back, confined in a narrow wooden space that smelled of oil and decay. Terror, pure elemental, flooded my chest. Then I heard the sound that would forever haunt my nightmares, the rhythmic wet thud of shovels and the heavy slap of dirt hitting wood above me. They were burying me.
Tuyệt vời, đây là nội dung được rút gọn, còn khoảng 80% từ 1018, từ xuống còn 894 từ, và vẫn giữ nguyên mạch truyền bằng tiếng Anh.
The return and the hunt for the vault. Through the panic, I heard the voices. Make sure it's deep enough, Marcus. That was Walter's muscle. Then the voice that tore through my soul. Hurry up. Dad said it needs to look like she just vanished. The job's done. It was Caleb. The betrayal was complete. The darkness was now a coffin, and the only sound left was my own frantic dying gasp. Consciousness returned not as a rush, but as an agonizing crawl. I was alive. The suffocating weight of the earth was gone, replaced by the heavy warmth of a thick blanket in a small rustic cabin. Easy, kid. You're safe now. Just breathe. I saw a man seated by an old cast-iron stove. Dennis Holt, he said. Denny to you. Found you about a foot from losing the last bit of air. Denny was a retired King County prosecutor who had moved to this isolated cabin after a high-profile corruption case fell apart due to lack of hard evidence, leaving him disillusioned. When I was strong enough, I told him everything. The greenwashing, the confrontation, the phone call, Caleb's final damning words. I showed him the encrypted portable drive. Denny listened, his face etched with grim understanding. Walter Vance isn't just a white-collar criminal. He's a monster. They need to go to a federal prison. I need justice that can't be bought or settled. Denny nodded. Then you have to stop being the victim and become the evidence. The system beat me, but it doesn't have to beat you. He slid a small digital recorder across the table. Truth is useless without perfect proof for this kind of revenge. As dawn broke, I stood ready to leave. The idealistic engineer was dead. The vengeful operative was born. I'm not Anya Vance anymore, I said. Anya Vance is buried under that lot. Tell me what I should be called now, Denny. He smiled. For now, you're Vivian Shore. And you're going to war. Stepping out of Denny's cabin, I was the ghost Vivian Shore, ready to hunt. Denny secured me a tiny windowless studio in an anonymous industrial district of Seattle, a perfect place for being invisible. I dyed my hair black, cut it severely short, and traded my designer suits for oversized practical hoodies. The fear was quickly metabolized into pure cold focus. Denny provided the blueprint. Federal prosecutors don't care about environmental ethics alone, Vivian. They care about two things: money laundering and racketeering, the pattern of organized crime. We need to prove the attempted murder was part of a larger systemic scheme. I spent my days as a digital wraith, establishing shell email accounts and securing my digital footprint. I began piecing together the financial puzzle. The data revealed a horrifying web-fake subcontractors in Panama bank transfers to ghost accounts and green bond profits systematically channeled into Walter's private luxury accounts. Aegis was a criminal organization operating under a corporate facade. I started tailing Caleb. My chance came one rainy evening at an exclusive club. I sat 2 booths away with Denny's recorder disguised as a power bank. Caleb met with a known fixer. The fixer spoke first. The job's done. Caleb's voice, low and arrogant, cut through the music. Good. Take the rest and keep quiet. Anya wasn't the first problem we solved. The blood drained from my face. The admission of a history of violence was the racketeering element we needed. I pressed stop. I had the smoking gun. The final piece had to come from the heart of the conspiracy, my mother. I had the racketeering audio, the money trail, and the greenwashing proof. But Walter Vance was meticulous. He had a private encrypted machine, a black server, hidden from Aegis's network, the vault, where he kept the truly damning records. Getting into that server was the key, and only one person knew the backdoor Eliza Vance, my mother. I used a burner phone. Her voice, once demanding, was now fragile. Mom, it's me. A strangled gasp. Anya, you're alive. Walter said it was an accident. I set the meeting tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., the old carousel pavilion at Discovery Park, alone. When Eliza appeared, she was unrecognizable, hollowed out by grief. I pulled back from her desperate embrace, showing her the ugly scar on my scalp. Walter and Caleb did this, Mom. They put me in a box and buried me. They didn't bury an idealist. They buried the truth about Aegis. I showed her the audio of Caleb gloating and the bank records. Eliza collapsed, covering her face. Walter made me sign the transfer papers the day after the funeral. He took my shares, my security, my trust. Her confession wasn't just about financial loss. It was about her loss of autonomy. He thinks I'm his pampered trophy wife blind to the numbers. She looked up. Her blue eyes hardened. He has a private black server in his study. He calls it the Vault. It's encrypted with a password he changes monthly, but he uses the same pattern the anniversary date of his first big illicit deal, followed by the year he met me. I memorized the year. I can get you the code for this month. If you do this, you free both of us. Not just from Walter, but from the lie. That night, a single, untraceable text arrived on my phone. It contained the string of numbers and letters, the key to Walter Vance's vault, delivered by the woman Walter thought he owned. With Eliza's code, Denny and I spent an electrifying night cracking Walter's black server. We found the crown jewels, a folder labeled Cleanup Operations. Inside was a video file, Cleanup Operation Vance.move. It was a shaky amateur video recorded by Caleb, detailing the final moments before the coffin was fully buried. The audio capturing Caleb's panic and Walter's cold instructions was the irrefutable visual proof. The time for digital war was over. I crafted one final anonymous email. The cleanup operation video is out. Meet me where it all started. Alone. Tonight. If you fail to show, the video goes to the FBI. I arrived early at the old reclamation lot, wearing dark gear, my professional recorder and body camera running. I hid behind a discarded excavator. Headlights cut through the mist. Walter's black SUV crawled down the dirt path. 4 figures emerged, Walter, Caleb, and 2 security men. "Start digging, you idiots!" Walter's voice was a low snarl. The sickening thunk as steel hit wood was excruciatingly familiar. They levered the lid off the box. "It's empty," Boss One guard whispered. Walter stared into the dark hole. His face fractured instantly. He turned on Caleb, the rage violent. "You said she was dead. You guaranteed me the body was never going to surface." Caleb broke, sinking to his knees. "I thought she was Dad. You told me it had to be done to save Aegis." He looked up, his eyes locking onto my position. "Dad," he choked out. "She's here. It's her." I stepped out from the shadow. "Hello, Dad," I said, my voice steady cold. "Did you miss me?" Walter screamed at Caleb. "You weak, pathetic failure. You ruined everything." He slapped Caleb hard. Caleb, sobbing, screamed back, "I didn't want to be a murderer. You made me do it." Walter looked at the camera, then back at me. "You think this changes anything? I'll bury you again?" "No," I corrected him. "You already did that. I'm just here to make sure this time when you go under, the world is watching." I had the confession, the violence, and the ultimate display of their depravity. I had everything I needed to win. The final verdict. When I walked into the courtroom again for the emergency hearing, I was the reckoning. The preliminary civil hearing had been utterly derailed by the evidence I'd submitted, leading directly to this moment, a criminal arraignment. The room was suffocating with reporters and the heavy anticipation of Aegis's collapse. I bypassed the prosecution table and walked directly to the witness stand. The judge banged his gavel. Walter and Caleb were slumped, their expensive suits looking defeated. "Ms. Shore," the judge addressed me. "Can you confirm the authenticity of the video and audio recordings?" "Yes, Your Honor," I affirmed. The video captured the conspiracy to commit murder. The audio confirmed the pattern of organized crime they built Aegis upon. As the court moved toward the official reading of the charges, attempted homicide, financial fraud, and racketeering, Walter turned toward me one last time. "You chose to destroy your own family," he rasped. I met his gaze devoid of sympathy. "You were never a family, Walter. You were an organization, and when I threatened the bottom line, you eliminated the asset. I didn't destroy Aegis. I just exposed the rotten foundation you laid." Caleb wept as Walter flinched away from him, the final act of Vance betrayal. The judge's final words were a torrent bail denied immediate custody and the appointment of a receiver for Aegis Global Holdings. The Vance empire crumbled with the clank of handcuffs. Walter and Caleb were led away, their protests drowned out by the roar of the press. Outside, Denny was waiting. He simply smiled. "You didn't just win, Vivian. You corrected a system failure." Weeks later, the full verdict arrived: Walter Vance, life without parole. Caleb Vance, a substantial sentence mitigated by his cooperation. I moved back to Denny's cabin, not to hide, but to heal. I still wake sometimes tasting the dirt. But then I remember the gavel's final thunder, and I know I'm not just alive. I'm free. Justice, I finally understood, was the sound of my own footsteps walking away from the grave they dug.